It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, November 1st, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that loves a second win in a row, Russ.
Yeah, it was a little boring though.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for over a decade. I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for over 15 years, Russ Cohen. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. To keep up with our latest info and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter as well. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is the end of October, as it is All Hallows Eve here. So we're going to kind of recap the month. But first, obviously, we got to dig into this Blues game that just wrapped up. Russ doing your patented from the parking lot reports of the at the Wells Fargo Center. Always love to see that. So I think, based on what the broadcast said and honestly the eye test, the big picture thing in this game is the defense on both sides. I think like both teams had pretty solid defensive play that were preventing quality chances, right?
They both played really good defense. I don't know if it totally prevented quality chances. I felt like both teams were offensively challenged, for a lack of a better word. I really do. I'm sure you went and looked at high danger shots. There was a long stretches without them.
That is correct. And the Blues had more of them by a decent margin. That's for sure. But, that's what Sam Ersson is for, I guess, right?
Correct. Yeah, he definitely was the equalizer for that. And boy, it got really close at the end. But no, that was another good game for Ersson. And, that's part of the reason they got the 2 points.
Yeah. And, on the defensive side of things, I think for the Flyers, who stood out the most to me was Travis Sanheim.
Yes.
Man, his skating was on another level in this game. You could just see his body positioning and his skating like exactly the way it should be to make the best defensive play possible. And I know he's a good skater, but I felt like it's just stood out, especially in this game.
I think so. And Risto was really good too. Like that, the both of them made a real big difference in this game for sure. But again, guys were putting their bodies at risk. I mean, I don't know how many block shots they ended up with, but I know it was 16 to start the third. So
yeah, that was 24 total. And I looked at the individual stats on it as well, just because I wanted to see like who was taking the brunt of it. My guess was Sealer, and I was correct. He had 6 of them, six of the 24.
Wow.
And Risto had 3 of them, and then all the others were spread out. I think like 1 or 2 each,
right,
like at the most. So I felt like other than Sealer and Risto, at least they spread it out a little bit in terms of the wear and tear.
Yeah, I was afraid for Sealer at one point. I thought he wasn't getting up after that one early in the game. But yeah, he's tough, man.
Yeah, and I would say that like I really appreciate the defensive effort in this game, and I think it was pretty similar to what we saw against the Bruins in terms of execution and in terms of obviously with the final score being what it was. I think there's a lot of similarities there, but I feel like okay, now we've got 2 games like this. Maybe let's get another couple of games with some strong defensive play and then transition from preventing goals to preventing shots. I think that's the next step, right?
Yeah, because if you could do shot suppression, you might get more offense. I feel like this play is robbing the team from some offense. And I'll tell you who, I mean, quite frankly, this kind of play has taken Matvei Michkov completely out of his game, because you saw that in the first period, he got benched for a little while so they could show him on the, what he was doing wrong. But these are the kinds of games that are going to be very hard for him at the beginning, because now he can't play as loose and he can only be a real factor mostly on the power play.
Right, and that was kinda be my next point
Okay.
is Michkov getting benched and, why that was, and it was very clear it was the lack of transition offense because
Yes.
that's where Michkov is gonna thrive in terms of making those key passes, so it did really only make sense to put him out there for the power play, for at least a short stretch, and I'm glad he got back in
Yeah.
at 5 on 5, like, it wasn't really a benching
No, it was
to
just like
me,
a little stop moment to
situational.
learn. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
situational.
Yeah, so I'm not really worried about that. I think I was at first, but then once I kinda saw, like, what was happening and the fact that he went back in there, I feel like that it was a good thing and how they handled it.
He's going to have to overcome some things. Like, as an example, uh, he is going to have to learn how to use some shot deception. Not just him. I mean, this would help Owen Tippett too. There's not much shot deception going on. So when Michkov is trying, even on the power play, to do that short side, shot that he's got, big goalies can stop that pretty easily. So that's
Yeah.
something where I feel like the coaching staff should be working with some of these players to make them, to have them work on their shot deception. Just show them Austin Matthews. Austin Matthews is the best at it.
Yeah, and I think just as far as the team overall, in terms of the shot choices that were being made, that absolutely got better as the game
It did.
progressed. I felt like at the beginning there was like nothing really net front going on except for some
No,
wayward wraparound attempts, which we know are not high percentage. So
they're trying them
um,
though. They've been trying them
I
since
know,
the start of the year.
but I think as they went on, they got a lot more net front opportunities that were actual shots or actual rebounds, and Binnington was also playing well.
He
Um,
was. He was. I mean,
so
give credit to Bobby Brink. He figured out that he's going to have to
mhm,
go to the net if he wants to stay in the lineup, and he did, and he got a nice shot there. I was a little worried because up high at first it looked like, oh, did he hit the goalie? And then you see the replay and you realize he didn't. So that was good.
yeah, yeah, and I think that, you looked at, the successful scoring attempts there, it was really great end-to-end play, so
Yes,
that sequence that ended up with the Brinkle was really good. That great end-to-end play by Paling,
Paling
who
and Hathaway was
desperately
good.
needed
Yeah,
that, right? And
yeah.
so that's the kind of transition offense that was really good for the Flyers last year, and we can see when they can execute, it's really helpful, but they're just not doing that enough, right?
No, I mean, look, Travis Konechny was largely absent in this game.
Mm,
Tippett is almost invisible at this point in these kinds of games, anyhow. And Forster had one really nice shot on net, and I don't remember much else. So these are like three key guys that they've got to figure out how to get some offense while playing this kind of defense. If they've decided this is the kind of defense that they need to play to get points, well, then you got to figure out how to get more offense.
yeah, it's interesting because with Travis Konechny, I thought he was the only one standing out early in the game in a good way
Very early.
offensively.
Yeah.
Very early, right? And then as the team got better, as the game went on, he kind of faded into the background a little bit
Yeah.
and other
Yeah.
people took over. But he and Coots did have that good 2-on-1
That's
uh,
true.
attempt that
I
didn't
forgot about
go,
that one. Yeah.
but I think that, yeah, that was kind of my observation on him. Coots was struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
Just he was a little busted, but I think his play was good. It just was he was getting hurt out there.
He
I
was.
think.
I mean, that's the thing. You worry about, how much can he play a 1C the whole year? Like, they're going to have to manage him very closely.
Yeah, I think so. One of the other interesting aspects of the game, both teams were over on the power play on
Yeah.
this one,
And,
and
and
based on what we talked about, we kind of could have predicted that because both teams have a pretty good penalty kill.
they do, but you figure, well, no, actually, why did I think the Blues penalty kill was like 28th in the league? I thought their penalty kill wasn't good, but I could be wrong. Um, but yeah, both power plays, same result.
Yeah, yeah, but I did think the Flyers power play got a little better as the game went on, but definitely, I thought the second unit still looks a little bit better, and I think
Yes.
that's where Andre really shone in this game, where you could really see what he brings to the table. Although I did think he had a good game overall, regardless.
He did, but now, I'm going to say something else. Uh, there was a time on the last power play where Michkov was at the point and he was doing a good job of passing. He wasn't shooting, but he was making great passes, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that's going to happen, then put Andre on the top power play and Drysdale on the second power play, because that should not be the role of Michkov, especially as a rookie. Because what if the puck hops over his stick once and all of a sudden that gets in his head? Like, let Andre handle that. That's his specialty. And if you have enough, faith in him being there, then have enough faith to put him on the top power play.
Yeah, and Andre, I think, handles mistakes better than almost
He
anybody.
does. And
He
the
moves
puck
on.
never hops over his stick. Never.
That's true. That is true. All right. Well, that was a nice win for the Flyers. Always great to talk about a win. We're going to see the Boston Bruins again this weekend. We're going to talk about that as well as our, overall thoughts for the month of October for the Flyers coming up next. Some of the best concerts of the year take place in the fall, and it's my favorite time to head to a show. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. My favorite part of the Gametime app is that it's great for getting notified about last minute flash deals and super deals so you know you're getting the best bang for your buck. Best of all, they have all in pricing, so there's no surprise fees at checkout when you activate the feature. Also, tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through email. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So, Russ, before we dig into the Bruins part two, you were in the arena, obviously, for the Halloween festivities.
Yeah,
Any
yeah.
highlights?
Yeah, I think just the whole Wizard of Oz thing was good. It was clearly the Flyers versus the Witches. Like, that's the way
Mm-hmm.
it played out. So, it was fun. I like the way they aged the look of Gritty, playing Dorothy. So yeah, it was cool. Uh Beyond that, I felt like they should have shown the fans a little more like dressed up. I didn't see enough of that. But
Mm.
otherwise, it was fun. Atmosphere was fun. The music was great at the beginning. They really played some old classics, so they did a great job on the music.
I really like the use of the black jerseys, and I think
Yes.
that Sam Erson's mask, that's the more black mask, that looks so good with those black jerseys. Just the whole
Yeah.
ensemble looks,
And the
at least it
zombie
looks
look,
really good on TV.
and I'm forgetting because I posted a picture on Instagram. The zombie look of the team when they showed them, in warm ups was terrific. That was a great job.
Nice, nice. All right, so the Flyers are going to face the Bruins for the second time in a row this week on Saturday. As of recording, the Bruins are getting shellacked by the Canes. It's 8-2 with about a
Oof.
minute left in the game
And
right now.
I think Swayman was in there. So
Yeah, it's not pretty for the Bruins. They have not had a good performance in a couple of weeks now, I would
yeah,
say. So, they're either going to come in defeated or very hungry. And I would prefer the former over the
yeah.
latter.
Well, I mean, right now their ineptitude is high, but I think they're going to come in and be very dirty. I expect
Hmm.
Marchand to be very dirty. I just think that's the way they're going to play: physical, dirty, just try and gut it out. And I think the Flyers have to be ready for that. I think that's the kind of game it's going to be. They've been playing these close games lately, and I think it's going to be that way again.
Yeah, at least the Flyers are going to get the more favorable matchups
Yes.
this time around, which will be helpful. I think ultimately, and this kind of is a good transition into our recap of October, is that Flyers got to score more goals. I think
Oh
that's
yeah.
ultimately the direction that the team has to be headed in. You look at the teams that they're playing next week, which is, the Southern teams in Carolina and the two Florida teams. The minimum goals per 60 that they have right now is 3.34. So that's going to be a tough matchup. So if there's a way to turn this good defense into good offense. That will help them against Boston and going into the games next week.
Yeah, those games next week, the backup goaltending spot is going to be an interesting thing now because Kolosov's the backup for now. Carrying three
Right.
goalies is not the greatest thing, as we've seen in the past. The issue that I'm going to have is, are you going to play Kolosov against one of those teams, or are you just going to sit him as the backup? And if you do, that's even worse than having him up probably at a young age, just sitting him. So I don't know how they're going to handle it, but none of those are easy matchups for a goalie in his second NHL game. I'll say that.
Right. So I think that's kind of like the other October thing for the Flyers is the goaltending situation.
Yeah.
And I think that, they've handled it okay. I think that it's probably doing a number on Fedotov,
Oh yeah.
which is not a good thing. But is it the right thing for Kolosov? Maybe. I think this is like put a pin in it kind of
Right. It's
situation.
definitely a put a
But
pin in it. Yeah.
but it's definitely been a thing in October. They're just because of the nature of having this win, they moved up one spot in the standings, at
Right.
least temporarily, while another team maybe catches up. But, they still got to make a concerted effort. These bottom three teams in the division are kind of close, and there's a little bit of a gap there. They got to get into that next group of teams, I think, at
Right.
least. They should be in that middle chunk of teams in the division, not in the bottom chunk. So that's kind of where we got to look moving forward. And they're not playing a ton of those teams in the
No.
near future. They're playing other teams. So they got to rack up points against very good teams that don't help them in divisional standings, except like the Canes are in the division, but the Canes are like so far ahead that it's
Right.
like, the effect is negligible.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So yeah, I'm going to be fascinated with what they do with the backup goaltending now, since they've sort of made a temporary choice, and then yeah, just see how these matchups go against these other teams because the Bruins are not scoring much, so that's fine. But then these other teams score more, and
Yep.
especially Florida. So we'll see how that sort of shakes out with that. That's where they have to really be ready for that. They can't play it exactly the same way because they're not going to be able to block all those shots from like
Correct.
Florida. There's just no way.
Right. And I think along with finding a way to play solid defense with less shot blocking and move toward shot suppression,
Right.
they have to clean up the zone exits at the same
Yes.
time.
Yeah, it's a great point. The other thing was, I liked what Morgan Frost was doing with zone entries. It just seemed to be very
Mhm.
short lived. Like all of a sudden they just stopped doing it. But he was, pretty creative getting in there. Uh, Other than that, he's not been much of a factor. So that's why I kind of like it when they can highlight what he's good at.
Right. So and that comes with more transition offense,
Yeah,
right?
it does.
They need more rush opportunities with second chances. That's the key. Is
Yeah,
like not
second
just
chances
getting
they're not getting. That's a great point.
yeah. Yeah, so they need to have more rushes with rebound opportunities here. And so, that comes with better quality shots, right?
Yeah, it does. It does come with better quality shots. And I feel like, there's a few guys that are really, again, we have to go back to what Danny Briere said in preseason that he didn't like what he saw from some of the guys. I think he's probably still seeing that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be an interesting November, and as it is officially the second month of the NHL season. In the meantime, we are continuing our draft prospect profiles. Yes, we do them this early because we
Yep.
want to get as many of them to you as possible. We are going to talk about Cullen Potter coming up next.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5, get 150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Go with the Eagles this week on a money line. Just visit fanduel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's fanduel.com.
All right, so we had our big crossover with Haley from Locked On Blues yesterday, so we didn't get to our weekly prospect profile. We're doing it now, and we are going to be talking about Cullen Potter. And this is a very fascinating draft eligible prospect to me. He's an American forward, mostly playing left wing. But the thing that's fascinating about him to me is that he's 17 years old, won't be 18 till January, but he's already playing in college at Arizona State. Why the early jump to NCAA hockey?
Yeah, so a couple of things. Actually, so he's flipped the script. He's playing mostly center and just a little left wing.
Mm.
That's this year. That's how they're using him. And so, yeah, he's 17 years old. He's a true freshman. It's hard enough to be a true freshman than to be like, I don't know, 4 months younger than a lot of guys in the potential draft class. That's a big deal. Uh, his mother's Jenny Potter, so she's an all-time player in the U.S. program. He What he decided was in his draft year that he needed to challenge himself more and play against bigger, stronger players. And he felt like that would help him. And I got to give him credit because it does look like it's working. He put on 10 pounds of muscle in the offseason. He's not any heavier. In fact, he's a couple of pounds lighter, but he's 5'10 now. He's not 5'9. So he's 5'10, 172. And that's already pretty sturdy. And it's helping him in the college game already.
Yeah, I think that's what's so intriguing, right? Because he was a U.S. national team development program
Yep.
kid, played in the USHL last year, had a pretty successful season for a younger kid, 35 games, 22 points, 9 goals, 13 assists. So that's like not like spectacular, but solid,
Yeah.
right?
Who knows where
And
he
then
was playing? He was, he might have been playing
yeah.
third line.
Right, and then he was playing on the U17 squad, obviously, because he was younger, right? So
Right.
he wasn't even at the U18
No.
level for the US national team, goes straight to Arizona State this year, where he's playing against, like, 20-year-olds and 21-year-olds, and especially
24-year
Arizona.
olds in a lot of
Yeah.
cases. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, so far at Arizona State, he's played 8 games, 2 goals, 2 assists for 4 points, which for a freshman, I think is a really good start to get off to here. But the other thing that's been fascinating to me about Cullen is that he is still smaller, right? I mean, even though he's gotten bigger and he's gotten stronger, he's still small at 5'10". And there seems to be like two different schools of thought on him right now. And I looked at some individual scouting reports from various games. The same exact game being scouted, scouts, two different scouts write a completely different opinion of him. And I'm just wondering, like, is the truth somewhere in the middle, or like, what's your take on his game?
No, the truth is what you see. You see a really good player. Like, you shouldn't be seeing a smaller player here. His speed's really good. His Just to give an example, in stat, I looked him up. Puck battles. He's won 56% of his puck battles. Like, again, that's could be anyone 20 to 24 years old that he's winning those puck battles against. He is shooting 49% of his shots on net, which is a really
That's
healthy
good.
percentage.
Yeah.
He's getting 1843 of ice time a game as a true freshman. I mean, I don't know what else you would want him to do. He's got tremendous speed. It's really good speed. One of his goals, he went down the right side. You probably saw this one where it looked like he's almost past the goal and he was able to pull it back and get it in.
Yeah.
That takes great hands to do that.
Yeah.
Like, not every player can do that.
Yeah, and from the highlights I've seen and from a lot of what I've read, it is that speed that really has carried him through because he can dictate the pace of play in
Right.
terms of, being on the rush that, he does have really great hands. Some people have said that because of that speed, he has a really strong back check too. And I think that's where him playing at center is
Yes.
probably an advantage to Arizona State because he does get back and can play a little bit of a
Yes.
two-way game that really helps his all-around look. It's just like the negative side of it is that because of his size, he gets pushed outside and can't recover. He's not anticipating enough for college level play, that maybe he just needed that extra year to prepare for it. And that's just what was so fascinating to
Okay,
me.
but if
It's
he's
like,
not doing that, then he should have no points.
right. And that's what I think too.
Half a
But to
point a game
see,
is good. Like, I don't know. Again, people are getting spoiled with like the years that guys like Will Smith and such had. He's not a top 10 pick. We know this. So you
right.
kind
And
of have to look at it that way.
that's where I'm getting to here, is that for the Flyers, obviously we're looking more long term here. We got to see how the rest of this kid's season go. But
Right.
let's just say he's in this similar kind of boat as he is now in terms of scoring pace, quality of play, and all of that. He would be like a super late first round pick or
Yeah.
a second round pick, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's that right now, that's his range. And so knowing that, when you look at his skill set, it should make you more comfortable with what he gives you. I mean, the hockey brain's good. His, he's been skating since he was 1.
Right.
So now he didn't play organized hockey until he was 10 or 11. But that's maybe because of his mom's schedule. Who knows why? But obviously that hasn't hurt him. I do think there's some things that they're saying, that the scouts are saying, that are true. That I think his keeping up with his own pace of play in his head may be something that takes a little time, because sometimes
Right.
guys' speed does. We saw that with Jet Luchenko going into rookie camp, into dev camp, and then by 3-4 months later, that was cured. But we did see it. We saw that where he was into the zone so quick that it was like, oh, processing had to get caught up. And I do think it would with him. And yeah, he's going to be a really good player for them. He scored a great shootout goal, and they beat Michigan. Like,
Yeah.
beating Michigan is no, easy task, you know. So that's a big deal right out of the gate. So I think people, again, this is where I say I understand where you're coming from, but he's not 5'7". He's 5'10", and he's already put on 10 pounds of muscle. So, like, he's already getting stronger, and he's gonna have another year to work out. This year, he's already told me he's working out while he's in college and playing. So I think he's one of those guys that you do have to see what he looks like in June, May.
Right. Right. And I think, you know, for a kid that's playing at Arizona State, now I know they did just beat Michigan, so that is a big deal. They don't have a winning record right
No.
now, but if you're a younger guy going to school a year early, essentially, like going to a program like Arizona State, which is good, but not like the elite programs, right?
Right.
You're going to get more opportunities and you're going to
Yes.
get more ice time. And I think that is the right strategy for him in terms
Yeah.
of, if he was going to make this move, Arizona State is the right kind of school to go to for it.
Yeah, and they have some advantages. Like, we dinged Mullet Arena as an NHL arena, but for a college arena, it's
Great place.
amazing. It's
Right.
amazing, and they have 2 sheets. So, like, he pointed out to me that if there's a concert going on, the team could still practice. He could still go out and practice. He could still sign up for ice time, go out there and do it. And that's an advantage. That's a big advantage that a lot of players don't have. So there's that, and he said they make great smoothies there too. So, like, orange dreamsicles. Like, and I was jealous of that. When I was in college, I couldn't even find a smoothie. What the hell was a smoothie back then?
Well, times have changed on
I
that front,
know.
but and times have changed with hockey development, and
Yes.
this is just, to me, one of the most interesting paths a kid can take is going to college early
He
as opposed
challenged
to,
himself.
yeah. Yeah, so that encourages me that he has the determination, and
Yeah.
he knows what he has to do to take the next step and to put his best foot forward for the draft. So I love adding him to our list.
Yeah, and he
We'll get
thinks
that
he's
spreadsheet.
inherited a move or 2 from his mom too. Like, how many hockey players say, "Yeah, I think I got that from my mom." Like, I don't know if I've ever
That's
interviewed
awesome.
one
I love that.
that has ever said that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, he goes, she was toe dragging. He was too young to see her. Like, he was there for the Vancouver Olympics, but he couldn't appreciate it.
Right.
But he's watched video and he's like, "Yeah, I think my toe drag and stuff like that. Yeah, I think I have gotten some stuff from her." That's
That
awesome.
makes me so happy.
Yeah.
All right, we will add him to the list and check back in as we get closer to next year's draft. As far as the Flyers go, they have the Southern trip coming up against the Canes, Bolts, and Panthers. We'll talk about that next week. as well as recap the rematch against the Bruins on Monday's show. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So send us in your questions or Flyers thoughts via any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert. Get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great weekend, everyone.